Okay.
Okay.
Nolan, it's good to meet you in person.
Likewise.
Yes. We've had a few chats on the phone, I know. And when the conference said, oh, well, you need to get on the phone with Nolan and prepare for the chat, I said, oh, we've chatted before. We're professionals at winging it. So,
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly.
You're still doing it. It's been the attitude.
I have never been qualified for anything that I've done.
Never. I'm in the same boat.
Yeah. And see, the theory is you always, try to do things above your pay grade, figuring out that you can learn it faster than they can figure out you're faking it.
Got it. And it's worked so far, I guess.
It actually has,
Yeah. Does anyone else in the audience, do you have, in the US we have this word, it's called imposter syndrome, right? And it means basically everyone feels like they're faking it, and at some point they're going to get found out. Does anybody in the audience feel like this? If you're not next to your boss, we've 3 or 4? Okay. Well, imposter syndrome.
You're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, you guys need to...
I mean, trust me, you've got to get out of your comfort zone.
Take more risks.
Take more risks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully by the end of our session here, people will be inspired to go be imposters, and...
Well, my goal is that half the audience need to believe that I'm stark raving nuts.
Yes.
If I don't do that, I'm not pushing the envelope far enough.
And the other half needs to be diehard believers.
Inspired,
Okay.
and get them just this close to adopting what you do, but not so far that they become committed to a mental institution.
Got it.
It's a balancing act.
Got it. All right. Enrollment in mental institutions.
Yeah.
Drive up the numbers. Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, cool. Nolan, it's great to sit down with you. One of the fun things about education and learning is that people that have been successful often kind of come to a moment in their success where they think, I'd really like to impact the lives of millions of young people by creating a better learning experience. And some people think about that, and then they continue on their yacht or their, summer vacation home. Some people actually take that thought, and they foolhardily, run into that and try to make that happen. So you seem to have stuck with it now for some years with BrainRush.
Correct.
Why don't you tell people why you didn't just keep sailing on your yacht? You actually got back in the ring, got back in the arena, and wanted to start another company. So what's so inspiring about BrainRush that you're on this crazy mission now?
Well, I think that perhaps a better place to start is to say that the people who are holding down the bar stools at the yacht club are really boring.
Got it.
And so you just basically say, I'm either going to shoot myself or I got to go do something where interesting people are. So the yacht thing doesn't work.
Okay.
Anyway.
It's good to know.
The next point is that whether it's a defect that I have, but I find myself deep diving on questions and doing kind of research. Mm-hmm. And I've always thought of myself as a scientist. People think of me as a businessman, but I think of myself as a scientist, my self-image. And so I like to be a secondary researcher. And the secondary researcher is, I don't do the primary research, but I read everything that's been done and try to get a good overview of some of the best minds in the world and figuring out what's really going on. Mm-hmm. And somehow I got the question, how do we learn?
Yes.
And I deep dived on that, and I came to the realization that many of the things that I was doing in the video game business was very applicable to how we learn.
Yes.
And that there's a correlation between doing learning the right way and ultimate happiness.
Uh-huh.
Now, you say, what? Ultimate happiness? Well, understand that there's this thing called the flow state. There's an interesting TED talk by a guy named Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi. He's Hungarian, and so you can't pronounce his name because it's all all syllable consonants.
Yeah.
And that's because the Italians stole all the verbs or the vowels from Hungary many years ago.
Yeah.
That's a historical side note.
In the medieval times.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what happens is that if you are challenged and you're working on a problem that is just at the edge of your capability, not too hard, frustration, not too easy, boredom, that you're in the flow zone, which is ultimate happiness. And that's what we do with video games. I mean, why do we level up? We level up because you've mastered these things, so we have to make it harder.
Yes.
And doing that, it makes it addictive.
Yes.
And so we design video games to be addictive.
Yes. But you're getting people in the flow state so they can level up.
Exactly.
I wish you could talk to my mother because, I wish I had, when I was like 5, 6 years old playing Atari, I didn't have the language to say, Mom, I'm in a flow state and I'm about to level up.
Exactly.
I'm learning here. I'm pushing myself.
Not only that, you were actually, believe it or not, you were building your brain.
I was building my brain.
Yeah. Video games have made a whole generation smarter. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Got it. Smarter, but applied to what? Yeah.
Cognitive reasoning.
Cognitive reasoning. So
you're a problem solver. In video games, you're solving problems.
You believe that because I spent way too much time playing video games as a young man, that I now solve problems better.
No question about it.
Really?
Yeah, and there's actually some pretty good research on it.
Wait, can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, there's actually some macro examples of it. Video games were controversial in the 70s and early 80s.
Yes.
There were countries that outlawed video games.
Uh-huh.
They, as a society, have been laggards in programming and computer skills.
Yes.
Video games were training wheels of computer literacy.
Uh-huh.
I know of not a single programmer, not one, no exceptions, of programmers who are not video game players early on. 100% correlation.
Yes. I bought a gaming machine recently. I'm a Mac guy, but I bought a PC so that I could play more games, have a bigger hard drive, all that. And I made a post on Facebook about it, and all of the founders that we back said, cool, when are we doing a LAN party, right?
Exactly.
When are we getting together at a game? So
Pizza and beer and it's good times.
Why don't you tell me, I guess then, you've taken this global lens of reading all about the science of learning. You look back at your wonderful career at Atari, and you said, aha, right? Aha.
Aha.
And part of the aha was flow states, learning, let's do this. But go deeper into that aha moment.
So I like to codify things into fundamental principles, sort of the building blocks. Mm-hmm. So what are the building blocks of perfect learning systems? Mm-hmm. They are, 1, extreme time pressure. That puts you in the learning moment. Your brain doesn't have time to think about the cute girl sitting in front of you, what you're going to do after school, the problems you're having with your mother, mm-hmm. all the other things that are going, it just goes away. So extreme time pressure, number 1. Okay. Number 2, active. It turns out that our brains are designed to forget, not to remember. If it weren't that way, think of all the things we're seeing all the time, looking around, what have you. If we remembered everything that we saw, pretty soon our brains would fill up and overflow. Mm-hmm. So we have to trick our brains into remembering. How do we do that? What is the mechanism? And so activity turns out to be important. So let's go to the science now and put a person, a student, into an fMRI which detects brain activity. If you put a person in an fMRI and you give them a book to read, watch a movie, watch a lecture, nothing lights up. It's like the rest of it. The world is moving by and you're observing it, but you're not thinking about it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, have you ever crammed for a test and you said, I know that, I know that, I know that, I know that, and then you get to the lesson and you don't have a clue. You get to the test and you don't have a clue.
Uh-huh.
So, the minute you ask a question, everything lights up. So, BrainRush software requires a response every 3 to 5 seconds. That's the learning moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Principle 2, active.
Time pressure, active,
Right.
trick the brain into remembering.
Precise. 3, play to mastery. I like to say that our schools should have no grades and no grades. Because much of learning, particularly mathematics and science, are additive. And so if you get a C or even a B, that means that there's a lot of it that you don't know. Mm-hmm. Or if you're grading on the curve, you may even be able to get an A and not know 20% of the subject. So you have to play to mastery, which you know it all. Absolutely, and submit it to muscle memory. Mm-hmm. So play to mastery is the second one. There's another interesting thing that happens with that. It's like a bit gets flipped in the student's mind that says, I can't complete this lesson until I absolutely know everything. And that's a good thing. And so play to mastery is 3.
Okay.
4, spaced repetition. It turns out that your brain what we want is retention. And so no matter how hard you cram now, it's fleeting. How many of you learned for a test and then a week later forgotten it all? Yeah. So if you're at a cocktail party and you want to remember somebody's name, you want to repeat over space. So at the beginning, you learn somebody's name. Hopefully you get their card or not. But before you leave the cocktail party, you want to engage them again and say their name once more. Then, to really solidify it, you wait 24 hours and you review their card. Those 3 steps, 2 repeats at night, 1 24-hour later, you've probably got that knowledge stuck in your brain for a week, maybe 2. If in a week you review it again, you've probably got it for 3 months. And at the end of 3 months, if you review it again, you probably will have it for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. So if we have a proper review process, you will be remembering everything you learned in high school and college for the rest of your life using spaced repetition.
Okay, so you've got time-bound, you've got active learning, you've got play to mastery, and you've got spaced repetition. So I'm repeating it here so that I remember it, right?
Very good.
4 principles. So we've got
You're
everything.
applying them right now.
We've got everything figured out. Now we can go.
Oh no, we got to go to 5. I've got one
5.
more.
Okay.
The 5th one is adaptive. An adaptive means...
What does that mean?
That means that the software needs to focus on your weaknesses. And it recurses back to extreme time pressure, because extreme time pressure for you will probably be different than extreme time pressure for me. And here's an amazing part. There is probably 20% of the population that have self-described themselves, and they believe in their heart that they are stupid. When in fact, they're just a little bit slower. And unfortunately, I'm not sure if this is true in Spanish, but in English, the euphemism for somebody who is perceived to be a little bit on the dim side, they say, well, he's a little slow. This is actually wrong. There's some people who just have different clock cycles, but are cognitively brilliant if it's normalized for the clock cycles. Mm-hmm. And so, do we really care in society if Joe takes 14 seconds to answer a question instead of 13 or 12? But the way we're learning right now, a lot of things are time constructed in such a way that actually matters in their outcome, and they start self-identifying themselves as stupid. Mm-hmm. And we've found this, that we've gone into some classrooms and we've given them brain rushes, and we can see how much it takes them to learn data really, really powerfully. And then we ask their teachers to identify who are the smart kids in the class and who are the dumb kids in the class. And in several cases, the teacher identified dumb kids were actually the smartest kids in the class in terms of being able to cognitively understand the underlying metrics.
And they were just bored and disengaged.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so, you've reviewed all the literature, and you've come up with the secret to learning, and then you didn't go on a lunch break. You went straight to work. Where are you now with BrainRush?
We have 7,000 lessons.
Okay.
Pretty much covering the STEM subject K-12.
Okay.
And we're now doing some very interesting things. We're going to try to empty the prisons.
Okay.
Now, I know that sounds like a step, but right now, if you're a judge and you have a youthful offender or an old fart offender, you have 3 options. You can do community service, fine, or imprisonment.
Yes.
That's pretty much it.
Yes.
We're going to give them 4.
Okay.
We're going to, and remember the play to mastery thing?
Yes.
It turns out that you can't complete a brain rush by cheating. You have to know it or you can't get through.
Yes.
And so we're going to give the judge an ability to say, Johnny, you can stay out of prison if you do 2 brain rushes a day. If you don't do 2 brain rushes, you're in the slammer.
And are you working with judges currently? Have you figured out the system here?
Well, we're not ready. We're just in beta right now.
Uh-huh.
We had to make 3 changes. The first one is we needed to turn on the camera of the PC or the cell phone every once in a while to make sure that it's Johnny and not Johnny's surrogate.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Second, we wanted to have it so that if Johnny doesn't do the 2 brain rushes a day, it emails the parole officer.
Got it.
And those are in process, and we're going to do it. And we actually think that learning, even if it's mandated, will do a big thing for people who are on the wrong path, because and we're experimenting, and I can't say definitively that we've solved this, but we think through some of our brain rush programs, we can mitigate antisocial behavior.
Yes.
For example, suppose I do a brain rush lesson that says the average income of a petty thief is 32 cents an hour, which is, I think, the actual thing.
Okay.
Because, you take prison time away from,
Sure, yeah, amortize it.
Amortize
Yeah.
that over that. And so drug dealing is, I think you're doing about 70 cents an hour.
Okay.
Stuff like that. I
Yeah.
mean, these young, dumb minds need to know that.
Uh-huh.
I think.
Could be helpful. Taking the insights of game design and applying it to learning, is very. It's an amazing idea if you can kind of bake it right, but the markets don't work the same exactly, right? Like the kids aren't lining up on a Friday evening to buy the learning, whereas they'll line up to buy a video game. So how do you tackle the market, right?
Well, that's why we're doing the prisons. Can I rant a little bit? I hate to do this. I hate to be that guy. But the schools are so toxic.
Yes.
And they don't care about their outcomes. They say they do, but it's a big scam so that the bureaucracy of education can support itself at taxpayer money.
Yes.
And as a result, innovation in the school system is maybe the dirtiest word in the world. Innovation, it's like schools were designed and they don't believe that the internet exists. And so, they figure, well, if it was good enough for Plato, it's good enough for us. Let's just have people lecturing ad nauseum, droning on.
Yes.
Our schools need to be really completely overdone. I think that school right now is about 10% effective, and it's killing the most important characteristic that I want to have in employees, and one is passion.
Yeah.
Man, going through K-12 in the United States, if it doesn't kill your passion, I have no idea what.
It'll definitely iron it out. Yeah.
It'll take out all the kinks. And creativity. It's not great for creativity either.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like, the warning signals are right there. Today, you can get into a better college being homeschooled than graduating from a majority of American high schools.
Yeah.
Is that wrong? Wake up.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to rebrand homeschooling as co-learning. And one of the things I like about the way that you're using the phrase brain rush in your brand, is you're taking this idea of a brain rush, which traditionally I've thought of as like you're eating gelato and you eat it too fast, and then your brain it explodes. And not with an idea, with too much gelato, right? But this idea of a brain rush is something that hits you like an epiphany, right? And so I want to ask the audience, have you gotten a brain rush listening to Nolan talk, and you have an insightful question that you'd like Nolan to answer, either about his days as a gaming guru or as a learning guru? Yes.
Thanks. I wanted to ask you, where do you put the cooperative learning process and the social aspect of learning? We know by neuroscience that when you're in an environment where you're cooperating, a part of your brain gets activated especially, and then your learning improves because you're learning with other people, like, for example, with the SOL project from Sugata Mitra, if you know the project, where they left a computer to 5 kids and they learn alone. So what is your view on that? Because my understanding is your games are one-to-one with a computer.
What I would love to be able to do is have a school that I design and control the complete curriculum, and it would be as follows. What I didn't tell you is that the intense time pressure, you really don't want to do this very much. It's like interval training. Mm-hmm. And so if I had 2 brain rushes in a row, that's probably okay, but 3 would start to burn my brain out.
Too much gelato.
It's too much gelato. Okay. And so what I would like to do is have most of the time spent working on projects in groups. Project learning is really important. For example, I think that in junior high school, we could start having kids run companies and market on eBay and create YouTube videos and design websites and do these things collaboratively around a structure. And then every once in a while, we want to have brain rushes inserted into that. Then, when everybody or enough of the kids have had the appropriate brain rushes, then you have a table, and you put 14 kids around the table to discuss the things to know. But then we know that everybody has the same baseline. Mm-hmm. Then we have high-protein snacks, like you have herring, chocolate, green tea at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And you put them in a blender and you put it on. No.
Yeah. This is very Swedish. Yeah.
Well, it turns out that oily fish is really good for your brain.
Yes.
Like, I eat a lot of herring.
Okay.
I really do. Because I don't, you can't help but get old, but I just don't want to get dumb. You know?
Yeah.
It's,
Stay sharp. Eat fish.
Eat fish and do the right kinds of exercises. Mm-hmm. There's this link between our brains and our body that are really important. For example, most of our brain was designed 35 million years ago when we were hunters and gatherers.
Yes.
And so if you look at what we were as hunters and gatherers, males at the time were walking and running 25, 30 miles a day.
Yes.
And so we learned on our feet doing things. Paleo woman basically walked or ran 3 miles, 5 miles, because they were basically around the camp. As a result, ADHD is almost uniquely a male phenomenon, because sitting still while we're learning is not part of our DNA. We're fighting our DNA.
Yeah.
If you take an ADHD kid and you exercise them aggressively before the class, ADHD goes away.
Okay.
Just an example. And I'm making... Anyway, I'm
yes,
sorry.
Well, unfortunately, we need to wrap up, but I feel like this is a good message for the Spanish audience. Walk a lot, eat a lot of fish, not too much gelato. It's a good message.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. And how should people get in touch with you if they want to send you more questions?
Nolan at Brain Rush.
Nolan at Brain Rush.
Yeah.
Cool.
And remember, it's not brain wash.
Yeah. Brain Rush.
Brain Rush.
Brain Rush. Brain Rush. Well, fantastic.
Thank you
so much, Nolan.
Be good.